We're going to take a journey to a place called marriage assessment, all right? We're going to explore all the wonderful needs. I have a section called His Needs, Her Needs. And we're going to go about this in a biblical point of view here, okay? Taking it straight from the Bible. Because some of the most advanced psychological findings that they found out come to find out that it was in the Bible all along, okay? Go figure, that the person who created mankind should know how we operate. And then we're going to do a personality assessment. I'm going to have some handouts towards the end of that, and hopefully we could get it all done before 10:30 for the break, and we'll go have some stuff to eat, some food. We'll be back in here by 11 o'clock, and Liz and I will be up at that point. We'll be doing Liz has a word. She's going to lead that session together. Then we'll end it with some prayer. So how's that sound? All right, good. Good. Go ahead and turn with me if you have Bibles. If not, it's going to be up on the screen there. To Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 23. Let's go ahead and read this from the start. I've got the whole thing up there. We're going to read it start to finish. Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so that the wives be to their own husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it, that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, that he might present it to himself, a glorious church, not having any spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. So ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loves his wife loves himself. Reciprocal. Amen? What we talked about. For no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, even as the Lord the church. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. This is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church. Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife even as himself, and the wife see that she reverence her husband. Okay, first off, there's some things that this sets up here. And before we go any further, I just want to mention that there's an order in the family, a biblical order that God has set up. Men, you are the heads of the household. And as leaders, you should know that everything that you are a leader of, everything that you are over as a leader, is a direct reflection of you. It's a direct reflection of your leadership. So if you don't like your marriage, the first place that you need to look is at yourself. The first place you need to examine is yourself. Because your marriage is a direct reflection of you as head of the household, as leader over what God has put you in charge of. I remember there was a conversation that I had a long time ago when I was very young in marriage. I think I'd been married for about 2 or 3 years at the time. I was having a conversation with a man named Tom Wagner. I don't know if you guys know. You remember Gary Wagner? Used to go here. His brother Tom, I used to work with him. I was just having this sit-down conversation with him, and I just said, Tom, marriage is tough. And I began to say some of the things about Liz that were perhaps a little bit unkind and a little bit just not faith-filled things. He stops me dead in my tracks, interrupts me, says, Robert, he just stops me right there and goes, Robert, women are responders, okay? They are reactors. If you don't like how they're acting, you need to realize that they're just reacting to how you're acting. You need to understand and step up and take some leadership of what's going on here. If you don't like what's going on, it's because you need to change first and foremost before you ever look at her. And look at how you're treating her. Look at how you're interacting with her. Because there, as a leader, you set the tone. The things that you do, she's just going to be reacting to it. Okay? Now, there's certain things that we see in here. Wives, submit yourselves to your husbands. There's a different interaction that God has set up here for how a woman, a wife, is to interact with her husband that's different for what he says that a husband is to interact with the wife. There's this concept that there's different needs that need to be met. There's different approaches that a wife is to have to her husband than a husband is to have to his wife. I want you to notice that. Go ahead and go to the next slide there. Look throughout this here. All of the words have been highlighted there that it talks about these interactions. And you notice that the red words are how the wife is to interact with the husband. We see the words submit, subject, reverence. Notice that there's all of the words that in blue is how the husband is to interact with the wife. Notice what it says: love, 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 and love. Okay? There's a need that each one has in interacting with each other, and it's different. Those needs are different. Now, the mistake that young couples can make going into marriage, is they could think that I'm going to fulfill her needs in the way that I need my needs fulfilled, when they're two very different sets of needs here, okay? Now, typically, when we see the words submit, subject, reverence, in our language, especially the word submit, there's kind of a submit, woman, connotation to it. And those are three, by the way, those are three very distinct different Greek words, but they all kind of carry this different idea to it of put yourself under that person, okay? Submit, subject unto, reverence, respect. This is the idea of what, based on those words of how it's saying, this is the idea of what is being said there. Submit, subject, reverence. It's talking about an admiration, a respect, adore, appreciate, revere. That's what a man needs in a relationship. When a man gets married and when a woman gets married, they could be going into the marriage situation having very different ideas of what they're getting themselves into, of why they're doing it, of what they need in that marriage relationship. Okay? Now, the man needs things like admiration, respect, to be adored, to be appreciated, to be revered. The woman needs love, and she needs it in the sense of affectionate, relational. She needs to be cherished. She needs the pursuit, the way that Christ loved the church, self-sacrificial, that pursuing, affectionate, cherish idea there, okay? Now, one thing that's interesting to me is that you notice it doesn't say, men, submit to your wives. And it doesn't say, wives, love your husbands. Okay? Because, why? Because they don't have problems with that. Okay? Because it's already It's already happening. See, we tend to love each other and treat each other the way that we want to be treated, the way that we want to be loved. And you notice, I'm going to throw out some generalities here. There might be exceptions to the rule, but in general, women don't have a problem loving their men, okay? They love them. If they died, they would cry. If they left, they would be a mess. They just don't respect them enough to think that they could go on living or existing without them, nagging every single bit. You know what I mean? They love them. They just have trouble respecting them, okay? Look at the flip side here now. Men, they don't have problems respecting their wives in general. They respect them. They give them their space, a little bit too much, maybe. In fact, they might get to a point where they flat out ignore them. They respect them. They admire them. Oh, honey, you want to try something? That's great. You go for it. But do they love them? Are they noticing them? Are they pursuing them? And so Paul is saying here these two very distinct things that he's telling husbands to do versus telling wives to do. He's telling these things in a manner that is saying, these are the areas that you need to work on. Why? Because this is what's going to meet the needs of your spouse the most. If you were to hold out love and respect in front of a man, I bet you he'd take the respect. The love is great. The love is great. But he needs that respect. He needs that admirational, respecting, adoration, appreciation, and reverence. If you were to do the same thing to a woman, if you were to hold out the respect and hold out the love, she would take the love. She needs that. She needs the affectionate, the affectional, relational, cherished pursuit that's self-sacrificial. That's meeting her needs. We're going to talk about the top 5 basic needs within the context of a marriage relationship. This was taken from a survey of 258 counseling centers across America, interviewing over 10,000 participants. So this is kind of like Family Feud. You ever watch that show, Family Feud? Survey says, and you could disagree with some of it. Some of this, just before we start going through this, some of it's a little shallow. I'm going to tell you that right off the bat, okay? But they've asked 10,000 people, what do you look for when you get married? Why do you get married? What needs are you looking to get fulfilled here in a marriage relationship? Well, let's look at the men's side. Can you guess what the number one is? Yeah, we're pretty easy to figure out, okay? Sexual fulfillment, numero uno. Number 2 is admiration, and with an emphasis on respect. They need that appreciation, that adoration, that admiration, that respect. Number 3, recreational companionship. They want somebody that's shoulder to shoulder going to live life with them, moving forward, and just everything they do, having somebody right beside them. They need that. Number 4, attractive spouse. I told you it was kind of shallow, okay? But no, one of the great things about that is, the way that God made it, every man thinks that his wife is the most beautiful woman in the world. Come on. But he appreciates it when she tries, when she seeks to do that. Number 5 is domestic support, household. He doesn't want to feel like he's the only one alone in running the household. Let's go over to the woman here. The woman's number 1 need. Did you know? Woman's number 1 need. I tell you, I couldn't have guessed that one. Back when I was a teenager anyway. Yeah, it's pretty apparent once you get married. You know this. Number 1 need is affection. And I put in parentheses there, non-sexual touch, okay? Just affection and that special, making her feel special, that pursuit, that affection. That's her number one need. Number two need, conversation, details. Sometimes men, they get home, been a long day at work, they want to kick off their shoes, and she wants to talk. And you kind of want to just say, okay, can you get to the point and tell me how much this is going to cost me, and we'll skip it all, okay? But she wants to connect. She wants to get in there and have that intimate connection so that she knows everything about you, but she also wants to know that you know everything about her. She wants to have that conversation, details, talk about the emotions, the feelings. Number three, openness and honesty, trust. She wants to know that she could trust you and that you are telling everything to her, that you have that relationship where you could share anything and everything. Number four, financial support. Again, back to the shallowness there. But it's important for her to feel, especially women. I mean, it's tough enough on a guy if he loses his job or whatnot, but especially if a woman doesn't know that they're going to be able to pay next month's rent or whatnot, like it's just tough. This is a need. Number five, family commitment. Not only the children that you have, if you're committed to not only her, but what's important to her, the family, both the immediate family and the extended family, that's a need that she has, okay? So these top 5 needs of a man and a woman, can you kind of see how all of these fit into these categories of this is more kind of this, I guess I could sum it up in the word ego, but it could kind of come around to that idea of submit, the admiration, the appreciation, the adore. This over here, the woman, it kind of comes down, you could sum it all up with just saying relationship, connection, love. And so everything that we went over in Ephesians chapter 5, it's basically spelling out, hey, these are the needs that a man has. These are the needs that a woman has. You guys need to come together. They're different, and it will affect each party if these needs are not getting met. So make sure that you, husbands, are loving your wives the way Christ loved the church, pursuing her and affectionately chasing after her, loving her self-sacrificially. Women, make sure that you are submitting to your husband, admiring him, adoring him, appreciating him, following his lead. The way that the church submits to Christ, places themselves under that. These are needs. It's a beautiful picture, Christ and his bride, of how our marriages should be and the way that they interact with each other. And if you ever have trouble of figuring out how all of this is to blend in together, just take a look at how you were back when you were dating. Do you remember that? Because it was so easy back then. Do you remember that? How it was just so easy. Women, do you remember how easy it was to admire him so much? You just made him feel so admired. He felt like Superman. He felt like he could do anything when he was around you, He could conquer the world because you believed he could, These things are just so easy back when you were dating, right? Fulfilling these needs and going back to hear the woman, remember how your man made you feel all this stuff back then? You just felt so connected. You felt so pursued. The affection. Oh, wow. He would leave you these little sloppy notes, hidden in a place where you would find them and be like, oh, I just feel so connected to him, you know. And what happened? It was so easy to meet each other's needs back at that point in your life. But as time goes on, as the marriage turns into year after year, and she begins to realize that he can't really conquer the world or do anything, maybe she will follow him to the ends of the earth, but that's only because she needs to take care of him and, nag him and make sure that, because he could barely exist. It's a wonder how he even existed before she came along. And he barely takes notice of her. He's just kind of hoping that she'll leave him alone. All of those wonderful romantic things he used to do, well, he's run out of creativity and imagination. I mean, he's done it. There's nothing left to do. All the, Valentine's Day's flowers, surprises and stuff, man, I'm out, baby. I love you. That's all I got. And this whole thing called pursuit, just boils down to we come to this point where we need to realize these needs are the things that we boil down to a place where we're starting to meet the needs in the way that we need our needs met. We need to get back to a place where we realize that they have different needs from ours, and we need to strive to meet those needs the way that they are and the way that they were meant to be done. Even though all of these things like the hormones have all subsided and we've come to this place where it's a deeper love. It's not a transactional love, but it's a love where we're stepping into God's to God's presence and bringing it to that place. So let's go ahead and transition from this. We've talked about his needs. We've talked about her needs. I'm actually going to have you guys rate each other on a handout. Isn't that exciting? This is going to be great. We're not going to do that just yet. Right now, I want to transition over into a thing called personality assessment, okay? Because not only his need, her needs, but also we need to realize that in spite of the fact that you got a woman and a man, we've also got personalities, and that might affect the way that we meet each other's needs as a woman and as a man. You could have some very strong personalities and some very weak personalities, and opposites attract, don't they? And sometimes you got marriages where one is way over here and the other one's way over here, and they met at a party one day and thought it was a great connection because opposites attract, and now they're married and they find out that, okay, we are opposite, and this is going to be difficult. There's some things we got to work through here because we got to find common ground. We're so opposite here. I'm going to have you guys do a personality assessment here, okay? It's going to be one of the fastest personality assessments you've ever taken. How many have ever taken a personality assessment that is, you take the 100 questions and you fill out the dots and you add it all up and stuff? Well, this is going to be a little bit different. It's going to take us about 2 minutes to go through here, okay? Let me explain what we've got. I've got a scale of 0 to 10. Now, you're just keeping track of this mentally now, okay? I'm going to give you a handout later, but for right now, you're just going to keep track of this mentally. Rate yourself on this. What am I on a scale of 0 to 10, expressive being a 10, non-expressive being a 0, and I want to explain to you what I mean by expressive. Expressive means extroverted. It means you wear your feelings on your sleeve, okay? Think about how other people think about you, okay? What would other people say about you? Are you somebody that if you have an opinion, it's going to be known? Are you somebody who kind of plays their cards a little bit closer to their chest, okay, that just kind of lives life that's a little bit more like, well, I don't need for everybody to know everything about me. I don't need to be that loud. I'm just more reserved. I'm internal. I work things out on the inside. The people at the top might be more collaborative. I want to, and if they're in a room, they make their presence known. They're very outgoing. They're very social. They might be very strong on opinions and stuff. The people who are non-expressive tend to be the people that are just in the backgrounds. It doesn't mean that they don't have opinions and stuff. It just means that they're keeping them to themselves and choose to be a little bit more, close it, internal, work things out inside, trust their insides more. Okay, so get yourself on that scale of 0 to 10. Then this way, 0 to 10, we're going to go from thinking to feeling, okay? 0 means I'm thinking, I'm practical. 10 means I'm feeling or intuitive, or I go with it, intuition. Let me explain a little bit what I mean by this, what is meant by this. A thinking person is very practical, okay? They are black and white. It's true or it's not. Whereas this person, they're feeling. They go more by intuition. There's more than one right answer, okay? It's open-ended. They go more by what they feel. I'm going to feel it out. They're less methodical, less formulaic, okay? So maybe a little bit more artsy, a little bit more abstract. This person is a little bit more cut and dried. This is the way it is, and that's how it goes, okay? We put these two together, expressive, non-expressive, thinking and feeling, and you're going to draw wherever you put that yourself on this. Let's say I put myself as a 2 on expressive and as a 2 on thinking practical. I would draw those both down together and I would be right about here in this area, okay? Does that make sense? Everybody with me? So go ahead and rate yourself and go ahead and rate your spouse. So while you're doing this, I'm going to go over what Liz and I got, okay? I myself, when I actually did this, I put myself right smack dab in the middle of the crosshairs there because that's where I am. I'm a dead 5 right in the middle of expressiveness, and I'm a dead 5 right in the middle of thinking and practical. And when I used to take these personality tests growing up, I used to think, because I'd get a 4-way split between the personalities. There's 4 personalities, and I know that there's a lot of different approaches that people take to these 4 different personalities, but they're all basically saying the same thing, okay? You've got over here, you got the choleric, which, you got the choleric, sanguine, phlegmatic, and melancholy, okay? Which, as Gary Smalley taught it, he taught it as the lion and the otter and the beaver and the golden retriever, okay? But it basically comes down to you're powerful, you're popular, you're perfect, or you're peaceful. Okay? Basically, the choleric is the person who's the strong leader. They're the generals in the army. They're the person that's strong-headed. See, they're very expressive and outspoken, but yet they're very thinking, practical, to the line, facts. Okay? That's a choleric. They're a good leader. Over here, you've got the sanguine. They're very expressive, but they're very feeling and intuitive, and they're social, and they're going to be the social butterfly. They're going to be popular. They're people persons, and they're very emotional, and they're you do not want to have a party without having at least 1 or 2 of those guys in there because it'll be a dull party. You do not want a party full of these guys here. It will be a very dull party, okay? The melancholies, the beavers, they're the perfectionists. They're very deep. They're withdrawn. They're typically going to be like the computer programmers, okay? They're people who are just very, they're not very expressive, and they're very critical thinkers, okay? Very straight to how it is. These people over here, the phlegmatics, are the people who are, they're amiable. They're very people pleasers. They're not very expressive, but they're also very feeling, intuitive. They're not so stringent and stuff. They're very flexible, and they perhaps need to be a little bit more confrontational, okay? Now, whenever I would take these surveys and I would find myself a dead even split between all four of them, I would walk away from them saying, those stupid things don't work. See, they don't work. I'm a dead even, how could you be four different personalities? Come on. And I found out by talking to some professionals that do this professionally for a living, or just people who know a lot about this, that if you're a four-way split, that's a dead ringer that you are a phlegmatic, amiable, this guy over here. Because those people, phlegmatics, are chameleons. They will blend it. Their goal is to blend in, and they will act whatever the situation determines. How they act is determined by who they're hanging out with. They blend in. They want to blend in. They want to be, part of the crowd. They don't want to stand out. They hate confrontations, okay? So really, I'm right up in that corner right there of phlegmatic. That's where I came out at, okay? My wife rated me more as over here on the melancholy side. So I rated myself right there. She says melancholy. If any of you are rating your spouse in a whole different quadrant here, that might spark up a conversation, You might have a different approaches on how you do things here, okay? So my wife, how I rated her, this is how she rated herself. Of course, she's sanguine, but she puts way over here on sanguine, up in that corner. That's how she rated herself. And I'm like, oh, no, you were way over here by the P in popular. That's where you were, okay? And I was like, no. She's got some choleric in there. And I put her way more over by kind of right on the line at the top there between choleric and sanguine, okay? And when I first married her, of course, she was kind of up on the ceiling there, at that spot on the ceiling. But you tend to, as your marriage goes along, you tend to kind of gravitate towards one another. You round off each other's edges, all right? And you kind of go into that place. Now, one thing I want you to assess here is that typically speaking, the person that's higher up on the expressive and further this way on the thinking critical side, in other words, the choleric, but the one that's the closer to the choleric side is going to tend to be the one that's a little bit more on the domineering side in the marriage, okay? Now, it's fun. You look at couples and you could kind of assess, okay, which one's the dominant one in this marriage here, okay? Doug, are you raising your hand? Okay. Because you could have... you could have these struggles with the dominant side and the non-dominant side, okay? And it could be a struggle, especially if you're somebody that's kind of far. Now, if you're way down here, maybe you don't mind that you're married to a domineering person. But if you're kind of far up there yourself, there could be some clashes and stuff. But either way, we want to talk about the dynamics about living with these different personality types, okay?